The conference room at Blackwood Development buzzed with the usual Tuesday afternoon energy. I sat at the head of the mahogany table, reviewing quarterly projections while my senior staff debated the merits of expanding into the Dallas market. The late September sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished surface where architectural plans and financial reports lay scattered. My phone buzzed. A text from Scarlett. I glanced at it absently, expecting the usual "pick up milk" or "Raven has soccer practice at 6." Instead, I read words that stopped my heart cold. "Can't wait for tonight, my love. Your hands on my body drive me insane. Meet me at the Meridian penthouse at 8. I'm wearing the red lingerie you bought me. Your devoted S." The room continued its animated discussion around me, but their voices faded to white noise. I read the message again, then a third time. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m. The sender. My wife of 15 years. The message clearly wasn't meant for me. Marcus Steele, my CFO, was mid-sentence about construction loan rates when I held up my hand. "Gentlemen, we'll continue this tomorrow. Something urgent has come up." They filed out, exchanging confused glances. I remained seated, staring at the phone screen. No anger yet. No hurt. Just cold, calculating assessment of the situation. I pulled up our phone records on my laptop. Scarlett's recent activity painted a clear picture. 847 text messages to and from a number I didn't recognize over the past 6 months. The frequency had increased dramatically in recent weeks. I cross-referenced the number through our corporate database. Dante Rousseau, senior architect at Meridian Design, the same firm where Scarlett worked as an interior designer, the same firm that leased their executive penthouse from Blackwood Development. My penthouse. I leaned back in my chair, mind racing through implications and possibilities. This wasn't just an affair. This was being conducted on my property, possibly using my resources, involving my wife and a man who had access to confidential business information through their professional relationship. War had been declared. She just didn't know it yet. I picked up my phone and dialed Scarlett's number. She answered on the second ring. "Phoenix. Hi, honey. How was your meeting?" "Interesting text you sent me, Scarlett." Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "What text?" "I haven't... I sent you a text?" "About tonight. The red lingerie. The penthouse." I kept my voice perfectly calm, conversational. In Texas, only one party needs to consent to record a phone conversation. This call was being automatically archived by our corporate security system. Oh my God. Phoenix, that message was for... It was about a client consultation. We're redesigning a penthouse and I was describing the decor themes to... The red lingerie is a decor theme? Another silence. Longer this time. "Phoenix, please. I can explain everything." "Then explain. Who is Dante Rousseau?" The sound she made was somewhere between a sob and a gasp. "How do you know about Dante?" "So you're not denying it?" We... Phoenix, I'm so sorry. It just happened. We work together and he understands my creative vision and you're always so busy with your developments and the kids barely see you and I felt so alone." The confession poured out in a rush of guilt and justification. 6 months of affair, secret meetings at the penthouse I owned, intimate dinners charged to company accounts, weekend trips disguised as business conferences. "Are you in love with him?" I asked. Yes. Yes, I think I am." "Are you leaving me for him?" "I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. He's married too and his children..." "Pack your things, Scarlett. You have 48 hours to move out. Phoenix, wait. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try counseling or... I hung up. The next call went to Isadora Vale, my corporate attorney and the most ruthless legal mind in Austin. She'd helped me navigate hostile takeovers, zoning disputes, and regulatory challenges that would have destroyed lesser developers. Isadora, I need you in my office immediately. Emergency. What's the situation? Adultery, corporate espionage, and possibly embezzlement. And I want blood. She arrived within 30 minutes, her silver hair pulled back in its usual severe bun, carrying a leather briefcase that had seen more courtroom battles than most lawyers see in a lifetime. Tell me everything, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I played the recorded phone call. Her expression remained neutral throughout, but I caught the slight narrowing of her eyes when Scarlett mentioned the penthouse. The Meridian penthouse, she said when the recording ended. That's your property. Leased to Meridian Design under a corporate agreement, which means any activities on that property are subject to the lease terms, including our standard surveillance and security provisions. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I'll need to review the lease agreement, but if they're using corporate premises for personal activities, especially activities that could compromise business confidentiality, what are my options? Legally? Quite a few. The penthouse lease includes standard corporate monitoring provisions. As the property owner, you have the right to ensure lease compliance. If they're conducting personal affairs on corporate premises, that's a lease violation. She paused, her pen tapping against her legal pad. But there's something else. Dante Rousseau has access to Meridian's client information, including projects for Blackwood development. If he's been intimate with your wife, he potentially has access to confidential business information through pillow talk. Industrial espionage. Potentially, and if any funds were misappropriated for their affair, embezzlement. Exactly. This could be much bigger than simple adultery. She closed the folder. I recommend we start with a comprehensive audit of all business dealings between Blackwood Development and Meridian Design, particularly any projects Scarlett has worked on. Do it. And Isadora? I want to know everything. Every text, every meeting, every dollar spent. Everything. Phoenix, are you sure about this course of action? Divorce proceedings can be settled quietly, with minimal damage to all parties. I looked out the window at the Austin skyline. Buildings I'd developed stretched toward the horizon, a testament to 15 years of strategic thinking and calculated risk-taking. I'd built an empire through careful planning and overwhelming force when necessary. She chose war when she sent that text. I'm just responding in kind. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find Caspian Cross waiting in my reception area. My head of security was a former Marine intelligence officer who'd spent 10 years in corporate investigations after leaving the service. If you needed information, Caspian could find it. Isadora called me last night, he said, following me into my office. She briefed me on the situation. What do you need from me? Access to the penthouse surveillance system and authorization to conduct a comprehensive background investigation on Dante Rousseau. He placed a tablet on my desk. I've already started preliminary research. The screen showed Dante's LinkedIn profile. 42 years old, graduate of Rice University School of Architecture, currently senior architect at Meridian Design. Married to Dr. Valencia Rivera, a pediatric surgeon. 2 children, ages 8 and 10. Clean background at first glance, Caspian continued. But I want to dig deeper. Check his previous employment, financial records, any civil or criminal history. What about the penthouse? The surveillance system has been recording continuously as per the lease agreement. Corporate security provisions allow us to monitor common areas for safety and compliance purposes. I'll need about 6 hours to review the relevant footage. How far back do the recordings go? 18 months. If they've been using the penthouse for 6 months, we'll have everything. By noon, Caspian had preliminary results. He knocked on my office door, carrying a thick manila folder and wearing the grim expression of a man who'd uncovered something significant. "You need to see this," he said, closing the door behind him. He spread a series of photographs across my desk. Surveillance footage from the penthouse showing Scarlett and Dante in various compromising positions throughout the summer. But that wasn't what caught my attention. "Look at the dates," Caspian said, pointing to the timestamps. July 15th, July 22nd, August 3rd, August 10th. Every Tuesday, I realized, when I'm in Dallas for the Pinnacle Holdings meetings. It gets worse. Look at this. He pulled out another set of photos. August 24th. They're not alone. The image showed a third person in the penthouse, a man in an expensive suit sitting at the conference table with laptop open and documents spread before him. "Marcus Steele," I said, recognizing my CFO immediately. "What the hell is he doing there?" "That's what I intend to find out." "But Phoenix, there's something else." I found records of unusual financial activity involving Meridian Design accounts. Large transfers that don't correspond to any legitimate business transactions. He handed me a printout of bank records. $400,000 transferred from various Blackwood Development Project accounts to a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. The transfers were authorized using your electronic signature. I studied the documents. The signature authorization looked perfect, but I'd never approved these transactions. Forgery? Almost certainly, but very sophisticated forgery. Someone with intimate knowledge of your financial procedures and access to your electronic signature protocols. Marcus Steele had both. "There's more," Caspian continued. "Dante Russo has an interesting employment history. He was terminated from his previous position in Chicago for inappropriate relationships with clients. Before that, he was investigated for financial irregularities at a firm in Denver, though no charges were filed. He's done this before." "It appears so. The pattern is consistent. Establish relationships with wealthy women in positions of corporate authority, then exploit those relationships for financial gain." The scope of the betrayal was becoming clear. This wasn't just adultery. This was an organized criminal conspiracy involving my wife, my CFO, and a serial predator who'd targeted successful women across multiple states. My intercom buzzed. "Mr. Blackwood, Dr. Rivera is here to see you. She says it's urgent." I looked at Caspian. "Dr. Rivera?" "Dante's wife, the pediatric surgeon." He gathered the photographs. "This should be interesting." Dr. Valencia Rivera was exactly what I'd expected. Immaculately dressed, confident, and radiating the kind of controlled intensity that comes from years of high-stakes medical decisions. What I hadn't expected was the manila folder she carried and the determined set of her jaw. "Mr. Blackwood, thank you for seeing me without an appointment." She sat across from my desk, placing her folder between us. "I believe we have a mutual problem." "Dr. Rivera, I'm not sure what you mean." "Please, I'm not here for games. I know about my husband and your wife. I've known for weeks." She opened her folder and pulled out a series of documents. Credit card statements showing dinners and hotel charges I didn't authorize. Bank records showing transfers I didn't approve. And this. She slid a photograph across the desk. Dante and Scarlett, clearly intimate, taken through a restaurant window. I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago, she continued. When someone starts working late every Tuesday and Saturday, spending money we don't have, and receiving mysterious phone calls at all hours, it doesn't take medical training to diagnose the problem. Why are you here, Dr. Rivera? Because I think our respective spouses are involved in something much more serious than adultery. She pulled out another document, a bank statement showing a deposit of $50,000 into an account bearing Dante's name. This deposit was made 2 days after a major withdrawal from what I now know is a Blackwood Development Project account. I studied the statement. The amounts and dates matched what Caspian had discovered. You think they're stealing from me? I know they are, and I believe your CFO, Marcus Steele, is involved. Dante has mentioned him several times in phone conversations I've overheard. She leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. Mr. Blackwood, I've spent 15 years building a medical practice and a reputation in this community. I have 2 children who worship their father, despite his flaws. I want this to end as quietly as possible, with minimal damage to our families. What are you proposing? Cooperation. I have access to Dante's financial records, his travel schedule, his communications. You have corporate resources and legal authority I don't possess. Together, we can document exactly what they've done and ensure they face appropriate consequences. And in exchange? My children don't need to know their father is a criminal. Your children don't need the trauma of a public scandal. We handle this professionally, quietly, and decisively. I considered her proposal. Having Dante's wife as an ally would provide inside access to information that might take months to obtain through other means. And her medical expertise might prove valuable if the stress of investigation caused anyone to break under pressure. Dr. Rivera, I appreciate your candor, but I should warn you, I'm not interested in quiet resolution. What they've done goes beyond adultery. If they've committed fraud, theft, or any other crimes, I intend to prosecute to the full extent of the law. I understand, but I'm asking that you consider the collateral damage of public exposure. Our children are innocent in this. Your children will be protected, but your husband and my wife chose their course of action. They'll face the consequences. She nodded slowly. Then I'll help you build an ironclad case. But I want your word that you'll consider the impact on our families when deciding how public this becomes. You have my word that I'll consider it. I can't promise more than that. She stood and extended her hand. Then we have an agreement. As she left, Caspian returned with additional information. I've been reviewing the penthouse surveillance more carefully, he said. There's something you need to see. He set up his laptop and played a video clip from the penthouse security system. The timestamp showed August 30th, 7:30 p.m. Scarlett, Dante, and Marcus were in the conference room, documents spread across the table. Can you enhance the audio? Already did. He adjusted the settings and replayed the clip. Scarlett's voice came through clearly. The Riverside project approval should come through next week. Phoenix thinks it's going to be routine, but the Zoning Commission has concerns about environmental impact. Dante's response: if we can delay the approval by 2 weeks, our clients can secure the competing bid. Marcus: I can ensure the environmental reports are delayed, but it's going to cost us. How much? Dante asked. $50,000 to the right consulting firm. They'll find additional concerns that require further study. The video continued for another 10 minutes, documenting a clear conspiracy to sabotage my development projects while enriching themselves through competing bids. This is RICO territory, I said. Racketeering conspiracy. It gets worse. I found similar conversations going back 4 months. They've been systematically undermining your projects and feeding information to competitors. I closed the laptop. The betrayal was complete. My wife, my CFO, and a man I'd never met had formed a criminal enterprise designed to destroy my business while enriching themselves. Caspian, I want you to compile everything. Every recording, every financial transaction, every piece of evidence. And I want it organized for federal prosecution. Phoenix, are you sure about escalating to federal level? This is going to become very public, very quickly. They made it federal when they crossed state lines and used electronic communications to commit fraud. I'm just responding appropriately. The next phase required careful coordination. I called Theodora Kane, a forensic accountant who'd helped me investigate contractor fraud on previous projects. If anyone could unravel the financial conspiracy, it was Theo. I need a complete forensic audit of all Blackwood development accounts, focusing on any transactions involving Meridian Design, Marcus Steel, or any shell companies registered in offshore jurisdictions, I told her over the phone. How far back? 18 months. And Theo, this is a federal case. Everything needs to be documented to FBI standards. Understood. I'll start immediately. While Theo began her financial investigation, I met with my sister Octavia at her downtown office. As an investigative journalist for Business Week, she'd built a reputation for exposing corporate fraud and had sources throughout the federal law enforcement community. "You want me to investigate your own wife?" she asked after I'd briefed her on the situation. "I want you to investigate a criminal conspiracy that happens to involve my wife. There's a difference. Phoenix, this is going to destroy your family." My family was destroyed the moment she sent that text. Now I'm dealing with the aftermath. Octavia leaned back in her chair, studying me with the same analytical expression she used when evaluating sources for her articles. "You're sure about this course of action? Once this becomes public, there's no going back." "I'm sure." "All right. I'll start with background research on Dante Rousseau. If he's done this before, there will be records. And I'll reach out to my contact at the FBI White Collar Crime Division." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly, and you're going to be collateral damage along with everyone else." That evening, I returned home to find Scarlett's car gone and most of her belongings packed into suitcases stacked in the foyer. She emerged from the kitchen as I entered, her face streaked with tears but her posture defiant. "I've talked to a lawyer," she said without preamble. "You can't just kick me out of my own home." "This home is owned by Blackwood Development, a corporation I control. The occupancy agreement can be terminated with 48 hours notice, which I provided yesterday." "You bastard. You're really going to destroy our marriage over one mistake?" "One mistake?" I pulled out my phone and opened the surveillance video from the penthouse. 6 months of systematic betrayal, theft, and conspiracy. One mistake would be a single indiscretion. This is organized crime. Her face went pale as she watched the screen. "You've been spying on me. I've been monitoring my own property for lease compliance. What you did there is your choice. I want half of everything. The house, the business, the kids. You'll get what the law entitles you to, minus restitution for the funds you've stolen and any criminal penalties you incur. I haven't stolen anything. I showed her Theo's preliminary financial analysis on my tablet. $400,000 transferred from Blackwood development accounts to offshore shell companies. Transactions authorized with forged electronic signatures. Bank fraud is a federal crime, Scarlett. She stared at the screen, then at me. Phoenix, I never authorized any transfers. I don't know anything about offshore accounts. Then you'd better hope your attorney is very good, because the FBI will be asking you about them soon. She picked up her suitcases and headed for the door. You'll regret this. Dante and I will start our own firm, and we'll take every client, every project, every employee who matters. You'll be ruined. Good luck with that. After she left, I poured myself 3 fingers of 20-year-old scotch and sat in my study, reviewing everything we'd discovered. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Systematic corporate espionage, bank fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. Federal crimes that could result in decades of prison time. My phone rang. Octavia. I've got preliminary background on Dante Rousseau, she said. You're not going to like it. Tell me. Chicago, 2018. Terminated from Henderson Associates for inappropriate client relationships. No criminal charges filed, but the firm settled a civil suit with a female client for an undisclosed amount. What kind of civil suit? Sexual harassment and financial fraud. Apparently, he convinced her to invest in a development project that didn't exist. Denver, 2020. Miller and Associates, investigated for misappropriation of client funds. Again, no criminal charges, but he was quietly terminated and the firm settled with several clients. Pattern and practice. Exactly. And Phoenix, there's something else. I contacted my source at the FBI. They've been aware of Dante Rousseau for over a year. Aware how? He's been flagged in their financial crimes database as a person of interest in a multi-state investigation of architecture and design firms. Apparently, there's a pattern of firms being defrauded after hiring him. They've been investigating him? Preliminary investigation only. But your evidence could provide the predicate acts they need for a RICO prosecution. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began composing an email to FBI Special Agent Sarah Carter, the white-collar crime investigator Octavia had recommended. If Dante Rousseau was part of a larger criminal enterprise, the federal government needed to know. The next morning brought unexpected developments. I arrived at the office to find Marcus Steele waiting in my conference room, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. Phoenix, we need to talk, he said as I entered. About what, Marcus? About the mistakes I've made, about the position I've put myself in, about the information I need to share with you. I sat across from him, noting the manila folder in his hands, and the way his fingers trembled slightly as he opened it. I want to cooperate fully with any investigation, he began. I want to provide complete information about the financial irregularities and my involvement in them. What financial irregularities? The transfers to the Cayman Islands accounts, the forged authorizations, the information I provided to Dante about your development projects. He pulled documents from the folder. I have records of everything. Why, Marcus? You've been my CFO for 8 years. I trusted you. Gambling debts. I owe $200,000 to some very dangerous people, and they threatened my family if I didn't pay. He slid a photograph across the table. They sent me this last week. The image showed his 10-year-old daughter walking home from school, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. The message was clear. They approached me 6 months ago, said they knew about my debts and my situation, offered to pay everything off in exchange for inside information about Blackwood development projects. They? Dante Russo and two other men I didn't recognize. One had a Russian accent, the other sounded Eastern European. They knew details about my financial situation that only someone with access to banking records could have known. You're saying this was organized from the beginning? I think so. I think they targeted me specifically because of my access to your company's information. And I think they targeted Scarlett for the same reason. He pulled out another document, a bank statement showing payments from the same Cayman Islands account that had received the stolen Blackwood development funds. They paid off my gambling debts in full. Then they continued paying me for information. I thought it was just corporate espionage, maybe some minor SEC violations. I never realized they were committing major fraud. What kind of information did you provide? Development timelines, financing arrangements, zoning applications, environmental impact studies. Anything that would give their clients an advantage in competing bids. How many projects? 12 over 6 months. The Riverside development, the medical center expansion, the downtown arts district renovation. Every major project you've been working on. The scope of the conspiracy was expanding beyond anything I'd imagined. This wasn't just adultery and opportunistic theft. This was systematic corporate espionage, orchestrated by what appeared to be an international criminal organization. Marcus, I need you to understand something. You're facing federal charges, bank fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, racketeering conspiracy. These are serious crimes with serious penalties. I know. That's why I want to cooperate. I'll testify against Dante, against the others. I'll provide any evidence you need. The decision isn't mine. You need to contact the FBI immediately and arrange voluntary surrender. And Marcus? Yes? You're fired. Security will escort you out after you've provided a full written statement. After Marcus left, I called Agent Carter directly. Her secretary transferred me immediately. Agent Carter, this is Phoenix Blackwood. I believe I have information relevant to your investigation of Dante Rousseau. Mr. Blackwood, we've been expecting your call. Can you come in this afternoon? I'll be there at 2 o'clock. The FBI field office in Austin was exactly what I'd expected. Sterile, professional, and intimidating. Agent Carter was a compact woman in her early 40s with graying hair and the direct manner of someone who'd spent years investigating financial crimes. Mr. Blackwood, before we begin, I need to inform you that Dante Rousseau and your wife are subjects of an ongoing federal investigation. Anything you tell us may be used in criminal proceedings. I understand. Good. Now, please tell me about the surveillance recordings. I provided copies of everything. The penthouse recordings, the financial transfers, Marcus's confession, Dr. Rivera's evidence. Agent Carter reviewed each document carefully, occasionally asking clarifying questions. This is excellent work, she said finally. Professional-grade documentation that will hold up in federal court. What happens now? We'll coordinate with the U.S. Attorney's Office to seek federal indictments for bank fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and racketeering conspiracy. Based on the evidence you've provided, we have probable cause for arrests. How long will that take? 6 to 8 weeks for the investigation to be completed and indictments to be issued. Mr. Blackwood, I should warn you. This will become very public once arrests are made. Your personal life will be subject to extensive media scrutiny. I understand. There's something else. The individuals your CFO described, the ones with Russian and Eastern European accents. We believe they're part of a larger criminal organization that's been targeting architecture and engineering firms across the southern United States. Your evidence may help us prosecute a much larger conspiracy. As I left the FBI office, my phone rang. Dr. Rivera. Mr. Blackwood, something's happened. Dante received a phone call this morning, and he's packing for what he called an extended business trip. I think he's planning to run. Where is he going? He mentioned Mexico, Puerto Vallarta specifically. He's booked on a flight tomorrow morning. Have you contacted Agent Carter? Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first. Call her immediately. If he leaves the country, extradition becomes much more complicated. There's something else. I found additional bank records hidden in his office, accounts I didn't know existed, with deposits totaling over $300,000. From the Cayman Islands accounts? Yes, and transfers to accounts in Switzerland and Mexico. It looks like he's been planning an escape route for months. That evening, FBI agents arrested Dante Russo at Austin Bergstrom International Airport as he attempted to board a flight to Mexico City. They found $50,000 in cash in his carry-on luggage, along with false identification documents and account information for Swiss banks. Scarlett was arrested the following morning at the apartment she'd been renting downtown. The charges were extensive: conspiracy to commit bank fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. Marcus Steele surrendered voluntarily with his attorney and was charged as a cooperating witness. The story broke in the Austin American-Statesman 3 days later. Local development mogul's wife arrested in federal fraud case. By evening, it had been picked up by CNN, Fox Business, and the Wall Street Journal. My phone didn't stop ringing for a week. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for October 15th. I sat in the gallery behind the prosecutor's table, watching as Scarlett and Dante were brought into federal court in orange jumpsuits and shackles. They looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of federal charges and the reality of serious prison time. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Harrison presented the government's case with methodical precision. The evidence was overwhelming: recorded conversations, financial records, surveillance footage, and testimony from cooperating witnesses. Your Honor, Harrison addressed Judge Maximilian Stone, the defendants orchestrated a sophisticated criminal enterprise designed to defraud Blackwood Development Corporation of substantial sums while systematically sabotaging the company's business operations. The conspiracy involved multiple predicate acts of bank fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering conducted across state and international boundaries. The government is seeking detention without bail based on flight risk and the substantial evidence of the defendant's criminal activity. Defense attorneys argued for reasonable bail, citing family ties and community connections. Judge Stone was unmoved. Based on the evidence presented and the seriousness of the charges, both defendants will be held without bail pending trial. The court finds substantial evidence of flight risk and danger to the community. As they were led away, Scarlett turned and looked directly at me. The expression on her face was a mixture of hatred and desperation that I'd never seen before. She mouthed words I couldn't hear, but her meaning was clear. This wasn't over. The trial was scheduled for March 2026, giving both sides time to prepare what promised to be a complex case involving international financial transactions and organized criminal conspiracy. In the meantime, life continued. My children, Raven and Sterling, had been staying with my mother in Dallas since Scarlett's arrest. The media attention made normal life in Austin impossible for them. Dad, When is Mom coming home? Sterling asked during one of our weekend visits. She's going to be away for a long time, son. She made some very serious mistakes, and she has to face the consequences. Is it because of the man she was seeing? The directness of the question caught me off guard. How do you know about that? Kids at school have been talking. Their parents read the news. I sat down next to him on my mother's couch, trying to find words that would explain the situation without destroying his image of his mother entirely. Your mother got involved with people who convinced her to do illegal things. She made bad choices and now she has to pay for them. But that doesn't change the fact that she loves you and Raven. Are you going to get married again? I don't know. Right now, I'm focused on taking care of you and your sister and rebuilding our lives. I hope you find someone nice. Mom wasn't very nice to you. The insight of an 11-year-old was sometimes startling. While the criminal case proceeded through federal court, the civil litigation began. I filed suit against Dante, Scarlett, and Marcus for damages related to their theft and corporate espionage. The amount sought was substantial. $2.4 million in direct damages, plus punitive damages of $3 million. Theo Kane's forensic analysis had revealed the full scope of their theft. Beyond the offshore accounts, they'd systematically overcharged for design services, inflated project costs, and received kickbacks from contractors in exchange for inside information about bidding processes. The total financial impact on Blackwood Development approaches $4 million, Theo reported during a presentation to my legal team. That includes direct theft, lost revenue from sabotaged projects, and increased costs due to project delays and complications they created. What about recovery prospects? Isadora asked. Limited. Most of the stolen funds have been transferred through multiple international accounts. We'll recover some assets, but probably no more than 30% of the total loss. Then we focus on the criminal prosecution, I said. Prison time is the only justice we're likely to get. The months leading up to trial were a blur of depositions, evidence review, and media management. Octavia helped me navigate the constant press attention, while Caspian handled security for my family. The threat assessment was real. Organized crime figures don't appreciate federal investigations. In February, 6 weeks before trial, Marcus Steele's cooperation agreement was finalized. In exchange for his testimony against Dante and Scarlett, he would plead guilty to conspiracy charges and receive a reduced sentence of 6 years in federal prison. His testimony will be devastating, Agent Carter told me during a pre-trial conference. He has intimate knowledge of the entire conspiracy, including the international connections we've been investigating. What about the Russian and Eastern European contacts he mentioned? We've identified them through financial records and surveillance. Viktor Petrov and Dmitry Kozlov, both subjects of an Interpol investigation for similar crimes in Europe. They're currently believed to be in Eastern Europe, outside U.S. jurisdiction. Will that affect the case against Dante and Scarlett? No. We have sufficient evidence for conviction on the domestic charges. The international connection just demonstrates the scope of the criminal enterprise they were involved in. The trial began on March 10, 2026. Judge Stone's courtroom was packed with media, family members, and legal observers. This case had attracted national attention as an example of how personal betrayal could escalate into federal crime. Prosecutor Harrison's opening statement was compelling. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about greed, betrayal, and the lengths people will go to in pursuit of easy money. The defendants didn't just commit adultery, they committed federal crimes. They didn't just betray a marriage, they betrayed the trust of investors, employees, and business partners. He laid out the evidence methodically: the surveillance recordings, the financial transfers, the pattern of corporate espionage that had cost Blackwood Development millions of dollars. The evidence will show that Scarlett Blackwood used her position as wife and business partner to provide confidential information to criminal conspirators. That Dante Rousseau used his professional relationships to gain access to proprietary business information. That together, they orchestrated a systematic campaign of theft and sabotage. The defense strategy was predictable: blame the victims and minimize the defendant's culpability. Scarlett's attorney argued that she was manipulated by Dante, who was portrayed as the mastermind of the conspiracy. Dante's attorney argued that he was merely a pawn in a larger criminal organization. Neither argument was particularly convincing when confronted with the recorded conversations showing both defendants actively planning and executing their crimes. The prosecution's case took 2 weeks to present. Marcus Steele's testimony was particularly damaging, providing detailed insight into how the conspiracy operated and the defendant's active participation in every aspect of the criminal enterprise. Dante Rousseau specifically instructed me to delay environmental impact reports for the Riverside project, Marcus testified. He said his clients needed the additional time to prepare competing bids. "And what did you understand his clients to mean?" Harrison asked. "The criminal organization that was paying us for inside information. Victor Petrov and his associates." "Did Scarlett Blackwood participate in these discussions?" "Yes. She provided project timelines, architectural plans, and client information. She was a full participant in the conspiracy." The defense cross-examination was aggressive but ineffective. The evidence was too strong, the conspiracy too well documented. On March 24th, after deliberating for 6 hours, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts against both defendants. Judge Stone scheduled sentencing for May 15th. In the meantime, both defendants remained in federal custody. The sentencing hearing was the culmination of 18 months of investigation and prosecution. I testified during the victim impact portion of the proceedings, describing the financial and personal damage caused by their crimes. "Your Honor, the defendants' actions went far beyond simple theft," I told the court. "They systematically undermined my business, betrayed personal and professional trust, and participated in an international criminal conspiracy. The impact on my family, my employees, and my business partners has been devastating." Judge Stone listened carefully to all victim impact statements, defense pleas for mercy, and prosecution arguments for substantial sentences. "The defendants' crimes strike at the heart of business and personal trust," Judge Stone said before pronouncing sentence. "Their actions were calculated, sophisticated, and caused substantial harm to multiple victims. Scarlett Blackwood, you are sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $2.4 million. Dante Rousseau, you are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $2.4 million. Both defendants were immediately remanded to federal custody to begin serving their sentences. As I left the courthouse, reporters shouted questions about my plans for the future. I ignored them and walked to my car, where Caspian was waiting. "How do you feel?" he asked as we drove away. "Vindicated. Justice was served." "And your family?" "We're rebuilding. The kids are doing well in Dallas. My business is recovering. We'll be fine. Any regrets about how you handled this? I considered the question. 18 months ago, I'd received a misdirected text message that revealed my wife's affair. I'd responded with overwhelming force, federal prosecution, and complete destruction of everyone involved. No regrets. They chose their path. I just made sure they faced the consequences. The recovery took time, but Blackwood Development emerged stronger than before. The publicity, while initially damaging, ultimately enhanced our reputation for integrity and corporate security. Clients appreciated knowing their confidential information would be protected. I acquired Meridian Design at bankruptcy auction for a fraction of its previous value, adding their client list and expertise to Blackwood Development's portfolio. The combined company became the largest development firm in Central Texas. Dr. Valencia Rivera joined the company as medical consulting director, bringing expertise in healthcare facility design that opened new markets for senior living and medical office developments. Our professional relationship evolved into personal friendship, then into something deeper. 2 years after Scarlett's conviction, Valencia and I were married in a private ceremony at the same penthouse where the conspiracy had been recorded. The symbolism was intentional. Transformation of a place of betrayal into a place of new beginnings. Raven and Sterling adjusted well to their new family situation. They visited their mother twice a year at the federal prison in Beaumont, maintaining a relationship that was important for their emotional development. But they thrived in the stable environment Valencia and I provided. Sterling, now 13, showed remarkable aptitude for architecture and engineering. Raven, 15, displayed the analytical intelligence that would serve her well in business or law. Both understood that their mother had made serious mistakes and faced appropriate consequences. Marcus Steele was released after serving 4 years of his 6-year sentence. He moved to Colorado and found work as a bookkeeper for a small construction company. We never spoke again. Dante Russo remained in federal prison, where he would stay until 2041. Valencia's divorce was finalized 6 months after his conviction. She retained full custody of their children, who gradually adapted to life without their father. The international aspects of the case continued to develop. Viktor Petrov and Dmitry Kozlov were eventually arrested in Romania and extradited to the United States to face racketeering charges. Their trial revealed the scope of the criminal enterprise. Dozens of architecture and engineering firms across the southern United States had been targeted for similar conspiracies. My case became a federal law enforcement training example of how personal betrayal could mask sophisticated financial crimes. I occasionally spoke at FBI conferences about corporate security and the importance of comprehensive background investigations for employees with access to confidential information. 5 years after that first misdirected text message, I sat in my renovated office overlooking the Austin skyline. Blackwood Development now occupied 3 floors of the downtown tower I'd purchased from one of Dante's former clients. The company employed over 200 people and managed development projects across 4 states. Valencia worked in the office next to mine, overseeing our expanding medical facility division. Our combined expertise had created opportunities neither of us could have achieved independently. The children were thriving. Sterling had been accepted to the summer architecture program at Rice University. Raven was editor of her high school newspaper and had already received recruitment letters from several top-tier colleges. My phone buzzed with a text message. Valencia. Dinner at home tonight? The kids want to try that new pasta recipe. I smiled and typed back, looking forward to it. The contrast with that afternoon in 2025 was striking. One text message had destroyed my first marriage and revealed a criminal conspiracy. Another text message now represented the simple pleasures of a rebuilt life. Family dinners, children's activities, and a partner who shared my values and goals. I'd learned that betrayal, while devastating in the moment, could become the foundation for something better. The destruction of what I'd thought was a good marriage had revealed how much better life could be with the right partner. Scarlett had taught me that trust, once broken, could never be fully restored. Valencia had taught me that trust, properly placed, could create possibilities I'd never imagined. The criminal conspiracy that had cost me millions of dollars had ultimately made me wealthier, both financially and personally. The empire I'd built on the ruins of their betrayal was stronger, more diverse, and more profitable than anything I'd achieved before. Justice had been served. Life had been rebuilt. The future looked better than ever. 6 months later, I received an unexpected letter at my office. The return address showed it was from the Federal Correctional Institution in Beaumont, Texas, Scarlett's prison. I considered throwing it away unopened, but curiosity won. I opened the envelope and read, "Phoenix. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. Prison gives you a lot of time to think about your mistakes. I've been following news about your company's success and your marriage to Valencia. I'm genuinely happy that you found someone who deserves you. You were always a good husband and father, even when I was too selfish to appreciate it. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I take full responsibility for the choices I made." Dante convinced me that we were just leveling the playing field, taking what we deserved. I realize now how wrong that was. The kids seem happy in the photos they show me during visits. Valencia has been good to them, and I'm grateful for that. They deserve stability and love, which I obviously couldn't provide. I have 7 more years to serve. When I get out, I won't contact you or try to interfere in your life. I just wanted to apologize for everything I put you and the children through. I hope you can find peace with what happened between us. Scarlett." I read the letter twice, then filed it in my desk drawer. There was something to be said for accepting responsibility, even when it came 7 years too late. That evening, I told Valencia about the letter over dinner. "How do you feel about it?" she asked. "Indifferent, mostly. She's facing the consequences of her choices. The apology doesn't change anything." "Do you think she means it?" "Probably. Prison has a way of clarifying what's really important. But it doesn't matter. Our life is here, now, with our family and our future." Valencia nodded. "The kids should know about the letter, though. They're old enough to understand, and it might help them process their feelings about their mother." "Agreed. I'll talk to them this weekend." As we cleared the dinner dishes, I reflected on how completely my life had changed. The man who'd received that devastating text message 7 years ago had been focused on revenge and justice. Those goals had been achieved, but they'd been replaced by something more valuable: a life built on mutual respect, shared goals, and genuine partnership. Scarlett's letter was a reminder of the past, but it didn't diminish the future Valencia and I were building together. If anything, it reinforced how fortunate I was to have found someone who understood loyalty, integrity, and the importance of building something lasting. The empire that had risen from the ashes of betrayal was stronger than ever, and it was built on a foundation that couldn't be shaken by misdirected text messages or criminal conspiracies. Some mistakes destroy everything. Others clear the ground for something better. I had learned the difference.